We are once again on the record. This is the case, State of Ohio versus Michael T. Dixon, 20 CR 0201. And we've come back from the lunch break. And Mr. Dixon's here with his defense attorneys. And we also have the prosecution team here. And I believe we were part of the way through Mr. Dixon's direct examination. So if we could have Mr. Dixon retake the stand, please. Try to keep your voice up, Mr. Dixon. Sometimes I think you're a little hard to hear. All right, and go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mr. Dixon, we just finished watching the video of the walkthrough, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Remember, keep your voice up so everyone can hear. Okay. And how you explained it during the walkthrough, that's how it happened, correct?
Yes.
And that's exactly how you explained it earlier today as well, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, you mentioned on multiple occasions, well, actually, before we get into that, do you remember what kind of bullet was in the gun that you shot?
I believe it was a double-aught buck.
Double-aught buck, okay. And that was what was described by the officers?
Yes, the clear shell.
Okay. Okay. And that was consistent with the physical evidence that they described earlier, correct?
Yes.
All right. Do you know that for certain or no?
Not for certain, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Now, you said multiple times while you were watching that video that you just wanted to try to be honest with them. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And that was during the walkthrough, correct?
Yes.
But I think it's fairly clear that you gave several different stories throughout, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, why didn't you initially just tell them all of that?
Because I was scared of getting in trouble.
Why would you be scared?
I didn't want to get in trouble, I guess.
Okay. Now, you also didn't talk about Melody initially, right?
No.
Okay, why didn't you do that?
I didn't want her to get in any trouble.
Okay. And was it the Winchester? Is that what you had in your hand?
Yes.
Who did that belong to?
My brother.
Okay. He had testified earlier that he purchased that from you. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. But you'd borrowed it?
Yes.
Okay. Why'd you borrow it?
Go deer hunting.
Okay. Was it hunting season?
Yes.
Okay. And he mentioned during his testimony that there was an agreement between you that you'd be able to borrow it during hunting season. Is that right?
Yes.
And is that why you borrowed it?
Yes.
And that's why you had it then?
Yes.
Why didn't you mention your brother initially?
I didn't want him to get in trouble.
Okay. Were you trying to protect these people?
Yes.
Okay. And so all of these things that you talked about on video, you did those all by yourself, correct?
Yes.
Did you ask anybody to assist you?
No.
Okay. Now, on the night in question, you've already told people here today and also on video that you shot Mr. Whitaker. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you feel in danger that night?
Yes.
Why did you feel in danger?
Because he had a gun. He
Okay.
told me he was going to kill me.
Okay. So he threatened to kill you?
Yes.
Did he say that to you before you went downstairs, after you went downstairs, or both?
Both.
Okay. So when you came upstairs, he told you he was going to kill you?
Yes.
Was that before you heard the safety click off?
Yes.
Do you feel Melody's life was in danger?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you think her life was in danger?
There was a reason I thought that he wouldn't let her leave with me. He wanted us to leave. He should just let us leave.
Okay. But he had a gun and wouldn't let her leave with you?
No.
Were you afraid for her safety?
Yes.
Were you afraid for both your safety and her safety when you shot him?
Yes.
Now, one of the last things I want to go over is when you talked to Detective Downs, former Detective Downs, you were asked if you were sad, right?
Yes.
Were you sad for yourself?
I was sad for Jimmy
Why would you be sad for Jimmy?
because he was dead and I really cared for Jimmy. I still do.
Even though you shot him, you still care for him?
Yes.
Would you take back what happened if you could?
If I could, yeah.
You would?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because he's not here anymore.
So, if you were in the same situation, would you do this again?
If I had to kill somebody again, yes. I wouldn't go through all of what I did.
Okay. Would you do it again to protect yourself or your daughter?
Yes.
Would you do anything to protect your daughter?
Probably yes.
Thank you, Michael. Nothing further this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination?
Thank you, Judge, Your Honor. Michael, you and I have never met, have we?
No.
Okay. So if I ask you a question that you need rephrased or repeated, please let me know and I'll do that for you, okay?
All right.
All right. So I want to go over a few things that defense counsel asked you about earlier, okay?
All right.
Frank was your father?
Yes.
Okay. Is your father your stepfather?
Yes.
And John is your brother?
Yes.
And you've known James Whitaker for about 15 years, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You started living with him about 2 years prior to his death, is that
Yes.
right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. You weren't paying rent at this location, were you?
Not all the time, no.
And your daughter moved in with you, is that right?
Yes.
And she wasn't paying rent either.
No.
You used meth and pills together?
Yes.
Okay. So when you told the detectives that you only used meth and did not use pills, that was a lie, is that right?
Yes.
You use drugs about every other day?
Yes.
And you use them with Melody as well?
Yes.
And at the point in time, when did you first start using drugs with Melody?
About 6 months prior to this.
Okay. So about 6 months before she moved in with James?
Yes.
And how old would she have been at that time?
About 18 and a half.
And you indicated that the night this incident happened, it was July 5th,
Yes.
and you were all using meth.
Yes.
You were using meth, Melody was using meth, is that right?
Yes.
And James was using meth, is that correct?
Yes.
And Keith Strickland as well?
Yep.
Then after that, you went over to Kenny Amarine's house?
Yes.
Okay, and you used meth there too.
Yep.
How much meth did you consume at Kenny Amarine's house?
Probably about a half a gram.
Half a gram. Did you snort it?
Yes.
How many lines is a half a gram?
Probably about 4 lines.
And you stated that you had been up for a couple of days. Is that right?
Yes.
I believe you said you hadn't slept for how long?
At least about a day and a half, 2 days.
And Melody, you stated that when you went over to Kenny Amarine's house, Melody stayed in the truck and went to sleep?
Yes.
So if she told detectives and officers that she hadn't slept for 2 days after you had killed James Whitaker and she went down to the basement, she said she hadn't slept for 2 days, that would be a lie?
Yes.
So when you go back to James's home, you told the police that James started yelling at you immediately when you went through the door. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
And that's what happened?
My daughter went to the bathroom. It's like when she shuts the door, then he come. It wasn't immediately.
It wasn't immediately? She went in and went to the bathroom first?
Yes, but it wasn't as soon as we walked in the front door. He wasn't right there. She went up to the bathroom.
So when you told the police that James was yelling at you as soon as you walked in, that would be a lie?
Yep.
And just to be clear, you're telling all these lies to get out of trouble, isn't that right?
Yes.
And James told you to leave?
Yes.
He told you to get out of his house?
Yes.
And you were living there?
Yes.
And you weren't paying rent?
No.
And according to you, James had a gun in his hand?
Yes.
Okay, which you indicated he had it in his left hand.
Yep.
When did James first start yelling at you? Where were you in the house?
Down as soon as you walk in the front door on that, where it either goes up or down.
So let me get this straight. You walk in the house with you and Melody. Melody goes through the house, goes upstairs, up some stairs, and goes to the bathroom and goes into the bathroom.
Yes.
At that point in time, James comes out and starts yelling at you?
Yes.
Okay. What were you doing? Just standing there?
Yes.
What was your plan to do that night when you got home?
Go to sleep.
Let's talk about you going to sleep for a bit. You sleep in the basement, is that right?
Yes.
There's one bedroom down there.
No, there was 3 bedrooms down there.
How many beds were down there?
At the beginning, when this all happened, there was 2 beds down there.
Where did the other bed go between the time that this
burn
happened?
pit.
Mr. Dixon, let me finish my questions, okay? What happened with the bed in between the time that you killed James that night and the police officers came and took photos of the basement?
It got burnt.
Who burned that?
I did.
You were having sex with your daughter Melody, weren't you?
No.
So when Melody told that to law enforcement, she was lying?
Yeah.
Juries to disregard that last question and partial answer.
Thank you, Michael. So when Keith Strickland testified that you and your daughter would go to bed together and there would be one bed down there, he was wrong. He was lying. Okay. So with respect to him saying that there were sex noises coming from the basement, that would not be true.
That's not true.
So according to you, James said that he was going to shoot you. Is that right?
That's what he said.
And then you decided to go and get your gun.
Yep.
But you could have left, right?
I could have, yes.
Okay. And you decided not to, correct?
I wasn't leaving my daughter there.
But James wasn't threatening you or your daughter. He was just threatening you, according to your words.
Yep.
So when you shot James, you stated that Melody, you couldn't even see her. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So you didn't even know where she was, did you?
Nope.
You told your attorney during direct examination, he asked you, was there something to cause you to shoot? And you said, no, there wasn't. Is that accurate? There wasn't anything that caused you to shoot James, was there?
No.
You stated that you put his body on a burn pit and covered it with trash, with brush,
Yes.
and then you went and laid down and went to sleep. Is that right?
Yes.
You did that all soon after you had shot and killed him. Is that right?
Wasn't very long.
How did you cut up his body?
I didn't cut his body up.
So the anthropologist who we heard from, who stated that the body was cut up, you're saying that that was a lie? She was wrong?
If she said it was cut up, then yeah, I didn't cut it up.
And then Keith came over the next day,
Yes.
and you worked on his car.
Yep.
At what time did you get fuel to burn his body?
It was already at the house.
See, at what point did you set his body ablaze?
About 8:30, 9 o'clock. It was just getting dark.
So 8:30, 9 o'clock the following day?
Yes.
So just to get a clear timeline, so you arrive back at James's house with Melody. It's about 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yes.
You shoot him, you take him out to the burn pit, and then you leave him there until about 8 o'clock that night.
Yes.
What did you do with this jawbone?
Still there, apparently. I don't know.
Well, you led detectives and you told them that you kept the jawbone, didn't you?
That's what I said, yes.
Okay. Are you saying that that was a lie, or are you saying you kept it?
I don't recall.
Okay. What about his teeth? Do you remember crushing James Whitaker's teeth?
No, I didn't crush his teeth.
So you don't remember what happened to his jawbone, and you saying you didn't crush his teeth.
That's right.
You said during direct examination by your attorney that you burned James Whitaker's body over the course of 10 to 15 days. Is that right?
Yes.
So when you told the detectives that you only burned the body for 2 to 3 days, that was a lie.
I told the detective it was several days, not 2 or 3.
You raked the burn pit
Yes.
to keep the fire going.
Yep.
You cleaned up the crime scene before you took a nap or after you took a nap?
Before.
You used rags and bleach and you burned them in the burn pile.
Yes.
And that was so you wouldn't get caught.
Yes.
You had Keith Strickland over. Did you tell him about the murder?
No.
And you had him clean up your house, that James's house, didn't you?
We rearranged it, yes.
Just to clear up another point, you told your attorney on direct examination that you pointed out that there was blood on the ceiling because they didn't know about the blood. Do you remember saying that?
Yep.
The fact of the matter is, Mr. Dixon, you don't know what detectives knew or didn't know. Isn't that right?
They told me they haven't found anything, or they told me what they found was in their, what I was telling them did not add up.
And your multiple stories didn't add up, did they?
No.
You stated for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that you used a blanket and a shower curtain to transport James Whitaker to the burn pit.
Yes.
You didn't tell the detectives about a shower curtain, did you?
No.
You got rid of, I'm sorry. Let's talk about the gun that was used. You used the gun you got from your brother. Is that right? To kill James Whitaker?
Yes.
You said you didn't get it for the murder, though. You got it to go deer hunting?
Hunting, yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, we approach briefly.
Yes, you may.
Back to my question, Mr. Dixon. Before you killed James Whitaker, you got the gun from your brother. Is that right?
Yes.
And you stated that you got the gun to go deer hunting?
I might have said deer hunting, it was just hunting.
And when you took it back to your brother's house, it was so that police couldn't find it. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And you hid it under his daughter's bed?
Yes.
Sorry. So, do you recall telling multiple stories to law enforcement about this?
Yes.
Okay, you first told them that James was missing. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. You first said that James wasn't even missing, he had just left. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that James took his TV and gun with him. That's what you told the detectives, didn't you?
Yes.
And you stuck with this story for a while, didn't you?
Yes.
Then you said that James may have committed suicide. Is that right?
I don't think I ever told him that.
You didn't talk about James saying that he was going to commit suicide?
He might have said it once.
You don't remember telling that to law enforcement?
No.
You don't remember telling law enforcement about a well behind his house that James may be in? Is that a no?
No.
You don't recall saying that you went and looked for James back there?
I went and looked for him, yes.
Why did you go look for him when you knew where he was?
I told him that I didn't go look for him.
Then you gave a story about how you and James physically struggled for the gun and you turned the gun towards his face and he shot himself in the face.
Yes.
All those are lies, right?
Yes.
And you were lying to stay out of trouble, is that right?
Yes.
And each and every time you decided to change your story was because law enforcement confronted you with evidence that was not consistent with your story, isn't that right?
Yes.
And when Julie and Dustin and Craig Evelyn came to James's house and told you to leave and called the police, why was it that you left?
Because they told me to.
Oh, and it wasn't because the police were coming?
Nope. I was going to stay there.
Why didn't you then?
Because they told me to leave. It was their dad's property.
So you couldn't have gotten off the property and stayed and waited in the street for the police to get there?
I waited up the road for quite a while. It ain't my fault. It takes hours for the cops to get there.
Okay. So it wasn't your fault? It wasn't your fault?
Yes, it was my fault killing him, but I went off the property like they told me to. It's an hour and a half later, I was still right up the road waiting for the cops. It ain't my fault. It takes Hocking County 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to get out there.
And you were going to come clean with the police officers that night? Huh?
Not clean, no.
So you got rid of the gun that you killed James Whitaker with, is that right?
I brought it back to my brother, yes.
And then you got rid of Jimmy's gun, isn't that right?
Yep.
You got rid of the large TV that was in the area, didn't you?
Yes.
And you told law enforcement and investigating officers that you got rid of it because it had blood on it and maybe some buckshot in it, isn't that right?
That's what I told him, yes.
And you said you told them it was in the burn pit, didn't you?
Yes.
But you knew it wasn't in the burn pit because you sold it to the Amorines, isn't that right?
Yep. Traded it for meth.
You traded it for meth?
Yep.
Were you willing to do anything for meth, Mr. Dixon?
Not anything, no.
So after these different stories and the officers take you back to the residence multiple times and they're looking for the jawbone of Mr. Whitaker, did you know where the jawbone was at that time?
No.
Were you? So you were just having them look for something that wasn't there that you didn't know where it was?
Yep.
That's a yes?
Yes.
But you didn't smash his teeth
No.
and you didn't cut up his body.
Nope.
But you indicated you stoked the fire, is that right?
Yes.
And you raked over it, is that right?
Yes.
And you put lighter fluid and camping fluid on there to keep it going.
Yep.
How many times did you and Melody talk about this murder or the killing of James Whitaker?
I believe twice.
How many times did you talk to Frank about this?
Once. I just told him Jimmy was gone.
So you also lied to law enforcement to keep Melody out of trouble, didn't you?
Yes.
So after killing James Whitaker, you and Melody stayed in his house for, what, about 20 days?
Yes.
So, Mr. Dixon, you stated that you killed James Whitaker because he wouldn't let you take your daughter with you. Is that right?
Part of the reason, yes.
Even going with your story, isn't it true that James could have been just protecting Melody from you?
No.
I mean, because after all, you're living in the basement with her with one bed, isn't that right?
No.
You guys went to bed together often, didn't you?
Roach.
You burned his body in the burn pit, is that right?
Yes.
You had Melody go to the Jesters to get gas to put on the fire to keep it going, didn't you?
No, that was from my car.
You cut up his body, isn't that right?
Nope.
You lied to the police multiple times, didn't you?
Yes.
And that was to stay out of trouble, isn't that right?
Yes.
You lived in James's house for about 20 days after you killed him,
Yes.
and you sold his stuff, didn't you?
My TV, yes.
You didn't sell his gun?
Buying a gun, yes.
One moment, Your Honor. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, Michael, I want to go over a few things to get some clarification from the questions that the state asked you. You were asked about how quickly Mr. Whitaker started yelling at you when you entered the home. Do you remember that?
Yes.
About how long does it take to walk from the front door to the bathroom?
10, 15 seconds maybe.
Okay.
Right around the corner.
And so you're saying that he started yelling as soon as he came out of the room?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember exactly how long you said it took you to tell the when you talked to the investigators, how long you said it was before he started yelling?
No.
And you said that you burned the second bed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was that along with all the other trash out there?
Yes.
Now, you were asked by the state just now, did anything cause you to shoot? You remember that?
Yes.
And on direct testimony, you said that he threatened to kill you, right?
Yes.
Verbally, right?
Yes.
And you testified that he threatened to kill you both before you went downstairs and after you went downstairs, right?
Yes.
And you also said that you heard the click of the safety go off?
Yes.
And all of that happened before you shot him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you know where Melody was when you came back upstairs?
Not exactly, no.
Not exactly? Where did you think she was?
I thought she was in the bathroom.
Okay. Were you still concerned for her safety at that point?
Yes.
Why were you concerned for her safety?
Because I didn't know where she was at.
Okay. And Mr. Whitaker had a gun?
Yes.
And told you that you needed to leave without her?
Yes.
Now, after Mr. Whitaker died, did you use methamphetamines or any other drugs?
Yes.
How often were you using drugs that time?
About 4 or 5 times a day.
Every day after he died?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that use impacted your decision making?
Yes.
Now, you were asked about the shower curtain by prosecutor, right?
Yes.
Do you remember if the officers asked you about a shower curtain?
I don't believe they did.
Do you remember if they asked you whether you rolled him up or anything?
No, they didn't.
What did they ask you about transporting his body?
They just asked me how I did it. I told them with a sled.
Okay. And was that a true statement?
Yes.
Now, you said that you didn't remember telling them about his possible suicide. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember if you did?
Not really, no.
Might you have?
I might have.
You're not denying that you did.
No.
You just don't remember?
Yes.
Now, you were asked about the jawbone as well. And you had told investigators that you had brought it inside and put it in a bucket or something. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that what happened?
No.
Okay. Why would you tell them that?
I really don't know.
Okay. Was there a reason behind you doing it? Do you know where the jawbone is?
No.
Okay. Now, you were also asked about various stories that you told, correct?
Yes.
And you were asked by the state how some of them did not add up. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you admitted that the stories that you told initially did not add up, correct?
Yes.
The final story you told during that walkthrough, to your knowledge, was that consistent with the physical evidence?
Yes.
And is that what you heard the detective testify to?
Yes.
And in fact, did you show them exactly what the layout of the house was when he died?
Yes.
Did they have any idea what the layout was at that time?
No.
Not until you told them?
Yep.
You heard Detective Robinson's testimony, right?
Yes.
Do you recall him testifying about how they weren't able to discover things until you added another piece to the puzzle?
Yes.
Do you believe that you've added all the pieces of the puzzle at this point?
Yes.
So have you told them the full story?
Yes.
And is that the same story you told here today?
Yes.
And so as you admit that you've lied in the past to law enforcement, right?
Yes.
At the very end, when you admitted to the killing, you then told the full story?
Yes.
And is today the story you're telling us and the jury true?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Recross.
Yes, Your Honor. Do you recall seeing that suicide note?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You showed that to Keith Strickland, is that right?
My daughter showed it to Keith Strickland.
You didn't show it to him?
Nope.
That's nothing that James wrote, was it?
I don't think so. I don't know. I didn't write it.
Now, defense counsel asked you about your story being the truth now. Remember that?
Yes.
Just asked you that. Well, there are some things you said now that have been the first time you said them. You realize that, right?
Yes.
And why would you lead officers on a wild goose chase for this jawbone that you never had?
I don't know.
They didn't demand you take them out to the house and look around for something that didn't exist, did they?
No.
You just made that up and went with it, huh?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
The redirect.
Give me one moment, Your Honor. I have nothing further this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You may stand down. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, the defense has no further witnesses at this time.
Does the state have a rebuttal case?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Could we approach?
Yes.
So at this point, we're going to take an approximately 20-minute break. So we'll have you back at 2:20. As I told you before, do not discuss the case among yourselves. Do not permit anybody to discuss it with you or in your presence. It's your duty not to form or express any opinion on the case until it's finally submitted to you. So we'll see you back in about 20 minutes. Thank you.